Hi, and welcome back to the Branding Storm Network, brought to you by Ameriscope Media. The purpose of these 5-minute vignettes per segment is to show you how to be that #1 brand in your market. I'm Andy Greenberg, and joining me is
Joe Moore.
And last week, Joe, we were talking about brands and what they are. And as a summary, a brand is what people perceive you to be, you and your business. Not necessarily the way you see yourself, but the important thing is to understand what you want to be known as, what you want to be seen as, and to provide that impression to your marketplace. And Joe, branding all starts with a plan. And when people go into business for the first time, they have a whole bunch of people that help them. Let's expand on that.
Well, you have your accountant,
right,
and your attorney, and your insurance, and your banker.
Right.
They're all standing at ready to be of service to you. Very few people ever consider getting a brand advisor or brand manager, and that's something that we would like to introduce as something that's extremely necessary, even more so than the rest of these people you have.
To help understand the impact that they have, last week we were talking about acting, and we challenged everyone to make a list of the role that they would audition for should a director come in. And it could have been an action, adventure, romantic, biography, and everyone picked one. Now let's assume for a moment you have yours, and in fact you go for the audition. And now you have to rise above everybody else to be in that #1 position, and when you do, and you become famous, you have a manager that manages you, the brand. That is basically the same thing that a brand advisor does.
Yep.
And it all starts with a plan. The plan for your brand. Joel, expand on that, please.
Well, when you start your business, you sit down and put on pen and paper what your product is, what your business is, how you're going to make it unique, what you're going to do to approach the market. And these plans become extremely important, and as we've discussed, you have two different kinds of plans when we talk about branding. You have a survival. Or survival strategy, and then
right,
you have a growth plan or growth strategy. And from that's where you execute your process of building your brand.
And it's interesting because people would say, well, I'm not in a survival mode in a business. Why do I want to go into business to survive? Yet it's known that 90% of all businesses actually fail in the first year. So the first year brand plan, the first year business plan should in fact be one of survival, because once you become one of those 10% that do survive the first year, then everything else can turn into growth. And if you've got a pencil and paper, please write down the word plan. And let's take a look at it from a different or an additional point of view. And we'll do the following. Under plan, please write prepare, long-term, actions now. And the key word is actions, because part of the plan to make it very successful is to take those action items into execution. And Joe, expand on that, please.
Well, that's where most businesses fail. It's really easy to sit around the coffee table and talk about what you're going to do for the day, and what you did yesterday, and how well things worked, and what struggles and what victories you had for the day. However, if you're sitting around and suddenly have a customer service issue, you're going to take care of that customer service issue. And then you have a sales problem, you're going to take care of the sales problem. Then you have an operations issue, you're going to take care of the operations issue. The marketing plan that you outlaid does not get executed because it suddenly takes a backseat to every other crisis you have in your business.
Right, and that's a key point, because everybody says, well, I do plan and I do execute. And we do. We execute problem-solving fire drills pretty well. Basically, reactionary planning is what a lot of businesses do. What this calls for, the brand manager calls for, is basically proactive planning.
Absolutely. You can get ahead of the ball game.
Right.
You can plan better. You can budget better. You can actually make a conscious decision to go one way or another, versus reacting to a crisis.
Sure.
And in doing that, you're much smarter and much more strategic about how you grow your brand.
Would it be fair to say, Joe, that a business today, the way they operate, is based on the plan, the preparing long-term actions now, that they prepared previously? The difference is, how well did that business execute that plan?
Absolutely. And the other thing we want to be aware of, when you have your plan, you lay it out a year ago or 2 years ago, part of that plan has to include flexibility.
Right.
Because some things don't work out the way you'd like them to do. So if you have a campaign or the revenues aren't where you had hoped they would be, you need to be able to be somewhat flexible on that plan, but the key is execution.
And I think what you're also suggesting, a contingency plan and even an exit plan, which all goes part into the planning process.
Yeah.
So one of the things we want to challenge everyone is not only to take a look at the day-to-day operations, but plan the brand. Plan your image. Understand who you want to be known as in your marketplace. Make a list of those things, and then as part of that plan, and you take it down and you say, how is this going to be accomplished? What are the action steps? What are the timetables?
And key to that is, again, as we had discussed in earlier segments, is removing the emotion out of this process. Right. This is, again, very difficult. We understand that. But this is very, very important. Remove yourself from the moment and remove yourself from what you think people are thinking of you. Remove yourself from what your wife or family are thinking of you. Make a good, sound business decision based on the facts that are in front of you.
And again, thank you so much for joining us this week once again in Branding Power Network, the WE event, brought to you by Ameriscope Media of Omaha, Nebraska. What we've done so far in the first 3 segments is indicated that yes, you will be the #1 brand. We defined what a brand is, and from an overall 100,000-foot level, we described what planning is involved in brand, and brand advisors are so, so important. Remember, prepare long-term action plans now and execute them. And as part of that plan, be sure to join us for segment number 4 of Planning Power Network right here on WE Event from Ameriscope Media, Omaha, Nebraska.
Thanks again for tuning in.